Hey guys, I'm Sean.
And I'm Jim. And before we get started, please hit the like and subscribe just because Sean and I love to give each other a ration of crap and you like seeing it.
All right, guys. So today, the topic is our potato soups. Potato soup because it was probably about the last week either of us are going to want to eat potato soup for a while. I know that for me, potato soup is a winter meal or a winter or fall meal. So we're going to be about 6 months before I'm going to want another bowl. So
And we're well into springtime conditions here to where, strictly speaking, I might not even have thought about doing a potato soup at this time of year.
yeah, so we're going to start with mine today, and let's get into it. Sean with Cross Country Food Wars, and today we are making our potato soups. I am going to make a loaded potato soup. That's the kind of soup that I like to eat. And we already have our pot heating.
Let's see your definition of loaded is.
So first thing I'm doing is I add bacon to the pan right away. It's where I get my fat.
Yep.
Just right off the bat.
And I'll tell you right off the bat, I do that a lot too. This time I didn't.
And release some of the oil. We'll get our onions in there and our garlic.
Nice touch cutting up into lardons first instead of just frying it in strips.
Yeah. You get crispier chunks that way.
Yeah, it's much better in crumbling it afterwards.
Yes. The way to go. So we've already got our potatoes cubed up here. And half of these potatoes are going to get added on the onset. And the other half of the potatoes are going to get added after the fact. So that we have two textures of potatoes in there.
You do it that way.
So we're going to have some of them very smooth, and we're going to have some of them that are kind of chunky, but just soft. So that's the goal here. We may actually have already put out enough fat to start getting our bacon down in there and our onions down in there. Nope, not quite yet. We'll be back in a couple minutes here once our bacon cooks down some.
Oh, I see what you're going to do. Okay.
So we're just getting our bacon out of here. We're going to reserve that off to the side.
You're not doing what I thought.
Moments here, and we're going to get our onions in there. Get those sweated down.
Something to point out is that those bacon lardons continue to cook after you pull them out.
Yes, they do. Our bacon didn't release quite as much fat as I expected it to. So I'm actually going to get in with some butter.
Yep.
As well. Yeah, you can see that pan is almost dry.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Looks as if it's running pretty hot too, but from all that smoke coming up.
I expected more fat. It is running pretty hot. Out of my bacon, but it was leaner than I thought. I saute pretty hot. I always have. I still need enough fat to cook these onions down in. So butter it is. That's room temp butter, by the way. Which I'm sure you can tell by the fact that it's now the reason that we've set aside our bacon and we're not cooking the bacon with this is, well, one, we have the fat in there, so most of the flavor of the bacon is still getting cooked into these onions. But two, we're gonna blend this later. We're gonna take our stick blender and blend this stuff up later. And I don't want blended bacon, so the bacon's gonna go back in after the potatoes, or the first half of the potatoes are cooked down.
So far, we're pretty much identical, except I would have just rough chopped the onions and not put as much color on them.
That our onions have been cooking for a little while. You wouldn't have got that much color on them?
No.
Garlic in. Oh. Garlic's a little bit more flavor, man. So you don't want to cook it as long as you do the bacon. No flavor. The onions, unfortunately.
Garlic.
It'll burn.
Let's say
burnt garlic is
many times vile. I use bacon. This time I didn't. You'll see what I did differently.
Very, very bitter.
But so far we're normal. We're basically the same.
We're just going to saute that for about 15 seconds, just enough to toast that garlic, and then we're going to get our first half potatoes in, and then we're going to deglaze with our chicken stock.
Yep.
We're also going to take this opportunity to get a little bit of salt and pepper in, just while we're sauteing. As you know, you can add
spices do get better when you toast them. Most
You can
spices
release a lot of
actually get better
flavor
when you
by
toast them,
frying off
so
your
long as you don't
spices
burn
for a bit.
them.
Yeah,
And we're
the
gonna
salt I
use
agree
that to our
with. The
advantage
pepper,
right now
not so much. I
toasting
think.
up some of these a little bit. We're gonna get a little bit of basil in
I
here.
wasn't talking about either of those. I was talking about the basil I'm getting ready to put
just
in,
a little bit.
the paprika that I'm getting ready to put in. Those things, when you fry them off for a bit, they release a stronger flavor.
Seed.
Or a different flavor, I should say. It's not really stronger, it's just a little different.
And a little smoked paprika.
You can probably also tell that I've turned the fire down a bit now.
Yes.
Not a whole lot, but down some.
Yeah, the sound has changed. There's not as much smoke.
Like I said, we're just kind of toasting this stuff up.
It's still blistering hot, but it's not as hot as it was.
It smells insane in here right now.
At least we know you don't have COVID.
I've been going for a couple minutes here.
That's
We're
true.
gonna go ahead and get, like I said, our first half of our potatoes in. And then we're gonna get our chicken stock down in there.
Right. I went with chicken broth, but same idea.
Yep. I almost went with bone broth, but I didn't.
We're gonna make sure we go back in.
I like
Make
chicken
sure that we get
broth.
all
It's the
that
best for
stuff
potato
released off the
soup.
bottom there.
But as you can see, my color is actually pretty dark
What we
right now.
definitely don't want.
Yeah.
But that's from the sauteing, that's from the oil, that's from the, there's nothing
Sticking to
turned
the
in
bottom
there.
at this point.
As
Anything
you-
that
as
sticks
you've
at the
seen.
bottom to this point is going to taste foul.
Oh,
Because it's
yeah.
going to sit here and cook for a couple of hours. And we're just going to go ahead and add this whole chicken stock right now. Some of this is going to cook off because we're going to leave this cracked. We're going to turn it down.
Wow.
Now. We're going to leave it cracked. Later on, we'll be adding a little bit of milk as well, just to kind of
Right.
make it a bit richer.
And also to get that color back down, because right now it's very brown
Exactly.
and not particularly appetizing.
No, not as
Just barely
potato soup.
cracked there.
No.
And we'll be back in about an hour. We're going to let this cook down for a little while. Then we're going to add a little bit of milk, some cheddar cheese, and then we're going to season it to taste, because all we did was kind of get the preliminary spices and seasonings in there.
Now those
Make sure
potatoes
we're
are
not
skin
missing
on,
anything,
correct?
And then we'll go ahead
Yes.
and serve it up.
Okay. That's another difference between you and me.
Hey guys, the
Everything
soup's
good about a
been cooking
potato is
for
in the
little
skin.
while,
I agree,
and,
but
we're going to go ahead and get it blended up.
yeah. And that right there is why I bought a stick blender, for use in my cast iron pot, so I didn't have to blend it in batches in my stand blender.
Yeah, that'd be awful.
It is. Take my word for it.
Well, I've had to do it. I didn't always have gadgets either,
Yeah. People, right there is the number one reason to buy a stick blender. Soup.
And sauces. Pan sauces.
Yep. Now, stick blender and cast iron. A match made in heaven.
By the way, guys, this is a one-pot
Take a
soup,
spoon
by the
and
way.
see
I'm
how
only
much we
using
got
one
left
pot
to
the
do
entire
here.
time.
Scraper here. So, looks like we got that pretty much blended up. And now we've got this kind of smooth, light brown color. Looks almost like a gravy. Actually, it looks exactly like a gravy.
It looks like a chicken gravy right now.
Yep.
And what we're going to do now is
I
we're
actually
gonna
went
get
two
our
pots, but
other
you'll
piece
see
of
why.
potato in.
I think I know why. I've had your I've
That's
had your
right.
potato soup before, remember?
That's right. I made it for you.
So now we're getting those other pieces of potato in there.
Yeah, which I definitely think should be skin on. The ones that going into the soup base, that's going to contribute to the color a tiny bit.
Our bacon
And I don't
back in.
care about that. That's the thing is, I care about color, but I don't really care about color.
Yep. There's the bacon, of course.
In the end,
Then we
the
need
the
some milky cheese in
skin is part of what makes it a good wintertime soup, because it has all those nutrients in it. It's good for you. I mean, this particular soup isn't great for you. It's full of cheese and bacon and butter, but when you are ingesting that much cheese, bacon, and butter and sour cream and all that other stuff,
Yeah.
it's good to get some nutritional
We're gonna try to
value
get a
out of it,
different
right?
Yeah. There went the
Start
milk.
getting more like
Yep.
that traditional color of potato soup that you're used to.
Still a little bit dark, but
I'm gonna go in with a little bit more.
Just a little bit more.
yep. This is hilarious. I
is how
really
we
didn't
lighten
expect
up.
us to be very different at all. I was pretty certain that you and I would think almost identically on our soups.
And you're wrong, huh?
No, I'm not. I mean, we're still very similar in our thought processes.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to differ in a couple of areas, but nothing major.
I don't think I use as many as many ingredients as you do.
No, you don't.
I just keep it very simple. It's a
And then
quick
we're just gonna get
soup.
some cheese in here.
This is actually the version of the soup that I envision I'll have on my food truck one day.
Ah,
Because it's quick, it's easy. I can make big batches of this with no problem.
And we're just gonna
And
kinda let this cook for a while.
now we often have cheese with our soup, but
We need for
rather
the,
than putting the cheese
potatoes
into soup like that,
that we
especially
just
cheddar,
added to cook.
that's
we,
a
just-
mixed blend, is what
we
it is.
put it.
And
We,
we
well,
need
yeah, but especially like that, we put
for
it
the
on
cheese to
afterwards.
melt
We
up.
serve it on top because
that's already seems to have happened.
I'm not trying to make a cheese soup.
But we need for the potatoes
Or
that we put in
a
just
cheese
now
sauce.
to cook through.
Yeah,
we're
but
ready to
the
dish
cheese
out.
doesn't really take over this soup.
All right,
We'll be back
but
in a couple minutes.
now what I will do is
I mean, I
put
can't-
blue
I-
cheese.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't taste that it hasn't taken over
Okay,
because
so
you're
our
in
soup is pretty much done
Nevada
here.
right now.
It's
But
had time to get nice and soft. All the potatoes are nice and soft. We have a nice chunky kind of consistency. And we're going to go ahead and get it plated up. So, first thing we need to do...
Now what I will use, let's say some
Yeah,
blue
it's,
cheese crumble once in a while, or even blue cheese dressing,
Green onions ready to go.
just to give it a bit of a tang, without breaking anything, without running the risk of putting vinegar in there or even lemon juice.
Got the green onions ready to go. Now we need to...
Lemon rinds work great too. Not rinds, but lemon zest works great too.
I can see that. See, we've got nice chunks in there.
Yep.
We've got a nice overall consistency. So almost more of a chowder. Is really what it kind of comes, flavor as far as the texture.
Hey,
But that's okay. I don't like thin soup.
scallop.
Thin soup doesn't fill you up, man.
How long did that take from the time you put the second batch of potatoes in to the time
Just
you plated it
immediately
up?
sink to the bottom.
Oh, 20
And
minutes.
then...
Okay, so they had time to cook in that
onions.
soup a little bit and soften up.
Yeah.
And that is my potato soup. It's a loaded potato soup.
If you notice, it doesn't even look the same when I come back to it after the
Onions
jump
with
cut.
Bacon,
Right.
and it's absolutely delicious. Enjoy.
That's a good, solid, basic potato soup. I don't know if I'd call it loaded, but it's a
Well,
good, solid soup.
I call it
I
a
like
loaded potato soup because it has the same ingredients that you'd put on a loaded baked potato. It's got sour cream, it's got chives, it's got bacon, it's got cheese. It is
Okay.
basically a loaded potato in soup form. So it's a
Okay.
loaded potato soup.
Okay.
That
Let's say it looks like
makes sense, right?
Yeah. Well, let's say it sounds as if it'd be quite tasty.
It was indeed. And it didn't take long, guys. Start to finish, I probably spent 15 minutes in the kitchen. As far as prep time, probably totally cooked for about an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe tops total.
Sounds about right.
And I literally spent 15 minutes in the kitchen. I just yelled at my my spy of choice to set timers for 15 minutes. And
Spy is right.
and set timers for 15 minutes and went back and checked periodically. The one thing you do have to be careful about with this loaded potato soup is that the cheese will cause it to stick. You must stir it every 10 minutes like clockwork, or you're going to have a mess in the bottom of that pan, and it's going to be awful. So
Yeah. Don't ask us how we know.
yeah, don't ask me how I freaking know.
Or how I know about it.
Yeah. All
It
right,
happens.
your turn,
But,
Jim.
okay, let me kick the first one up here. Okay, I'm coming in after I've already cooked down the onions, but that's rough cut onions and equal amounts of potatoes and butternut squash that we had from a prior dish. In the second pot, I've got two more potatoes cubed along with carrots and celery. That was cooking in water. Now I'm coming back here. This has been cooking long enough that the potatoes has been tender. I I covered it with chicken broth just enough to barely cover. Now I added it's about maybe a cup and a half of milk. And now, like Sean, I'm just going to blend everything up. Now,
Do we have the same pan?
yes, we do. That was the one that I gifted you. Is the one that I use.
Well, it's gotten a lot of love here, that's for sure.
Now in comes a
Me and
touch
Jim
of
always get each other pots and pans as gifts because our assorted family members won't beat us with them if they're gifts.
yeah, yeah. What I just put in was a bit of Tabasco, a little bit of Worcestershire. And I got everything blended up. I'm going to taste it. You're going to see where I'm going to add some salt. And instead of pepper, I use Montreal steak seasoning. Now, one thing I learned the hard way, only use half as much salt as you think you need when putting in Montreal steak seasoning. And unless you're used to it, add the Montreal steak seasoning first, then taste before you put the salt in.
Yeah, whereas I would never risk a blend in my soups.
Well, we like it. It turns out that McCormick does a good job with their blends. I guess I can get to, I can tell you a theory about why that is, by the way. So now it's just, once again, blending it up. As you can see, mine's a bit lighter in color than yours.
Significantly lighter in color.
Yeah. But once again, it's sort of a chowder, but it's still got some body.
Yeah, and the difference between the two is the amount of sautéing we did.
Yeah, I didn't brown the onions, but that was onions and garlic, same as yours. Then,
and my butter browned as well. It didn't burn, but it did brown.
Yeah, whereas I used oil. I didn't use bacon this time because I'm going to pause this again. Many times in my soups, I'll do exactly the same thing. I'll cook up bacon lardons and then cook off the onions in that bacon grease to get the flavor. However, this is the first time I've made the soup using the butternut squash.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't quite certain how that would work together.
Bacon and squash go. I mean, I don't like squash, but bacon and squash do go.
Well, I can't remember
just for
how
future
it turned.
reference.
Yeah. Well, I've done a butternut squash sweet potato soup before, and it worked, but I wasn't so sure about this. So I didn't want to go too far out. That's one thing about potato soup. You can pair a lot of root vegetables with it.
Yeah,
to make that soup base.
It's not my style, but you can definitely get away with it. Get away with it.
Well, you're always saying that my flavors are too bland, or they might not be bold, but I like to add some diversity in the flavors. I like to add a little bit of complexity.
Yeah.
Like quite often I'll use daikon radishes, or my favorite is parsnip.
Yeah, me and Jim have very different strategies for getting you to like our food. Jim tries to whisper in your ear that you're going to like it, whereas I beat you over the head with flavor and say, you like this.
Now there's all of the chunk veggies coming in. Now, I cooked them in a separate pot because, number one, I didn't have as much as normal, but I like to cook them separately.
Mm-hmm.
And I par cook them. I mean, they're not fully cooked. And I start the carrots and celery first, then put the potatoes in when they start to get tender, because those potatoes will cook quick when they're cut that small in bite sizes. And here, instead of bacon, I'm adding in some cubed ham.
Okay.
I mean, you got to have some protein in here.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, for potato soup, you got to have it.
I would have probably gone a little bit smaller with these cubes, but
No, they're a half inch or smaller. So they're not that big. And now this just simmered for like 20 minutes, like that. And now it's ready. As you said, it has a nice texture. Let's get a
texture
bowl
actually
of
looks a lot like mine did.
Yeah. I say, and there's a difference between it. So visually, they're quite different.
Yes.
Flavor wise, I don't think they'll be too different.
Quite different. Because in mine there's no carrot. There's
Now take a look at that spoon. Everything that's in there. That's my version of a hearty potato soup. I like to call it an Irish potato soup, but sometimes I use ingredients that you're not going to find in Ireland. So I call that a hearty potato soup, which I think is a fair description.
Yeah, I would say so.
Now, Randy didn't realize how hot this was. And I'm going to play this clip all by itself with the audio turned on. Okay, I'm going to take that one down. Now
he was in some pain.
Go ahead. You can hear the background noise.
You can see the steam coming off of it. How did he not know it was hot?
Very good, though.
I couldn't resist on that one.
Jeez.
Yeah. So what do you think, Sean? I think I matched you in terms of
technique,
appealing,
yeah,
an appealing soup.
I'd much rather have my soup, but I don't
both like our own
parsnips.
flavors.
Yeah. Like I said, we have different approaches to making you like our food, right? Jim likes to he likes subtlety. He likes, things like that. Whereas, I like to just kind of beat people over the head with flavor and say, you will like this,
Yeah, cooking time, I think I came in about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half tops. The prep, of course, doesn't take long. You've already seen
chopping.
You've already seen my piss poor knife skills.
Right.
Thankfully, it didn't matter for the soup so much, because certainly on the onions, I could just rough cut those because they're going to get blended anyway. But yeah, technique wise, I think we're pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's very close, very very similar, very very similar.
Yeah, and if I wanted to do it in one pot, then once I add the veggies and put the chunks in, then I'd have to let it simmer for like a half hour or more.
Right, which is why I used more liquid, because I knew I was going to have to simmer for a lot longer than you did, because I cooked because everything that I used for my soup base got blended, and at that point I can cook that forever.
Right,
as long as I keep adding liquid,
Right, and when I'm actually cooking the potatoes, in this case squash, or when I'm cooking that, I add just enough broth to cover, or not quite cover, because I know I'm going to be adding milk to get the color.
Yep. And also just to add creaminess, right? Like potato soup without milk is terrible. You guys ever had it? It sucks. It sucks. You gotta have some milk in there.
Yeah, once again, other ways to riff is, let's say, blue cheese crumbles or blue cheese dressing, sour cream. There's almost anything can go in there. Potato soup is really a blank canvas in my mind.
It is. I thought about putting pork on there, like pulled pork, because I had pulled pork left today. When you smoke barbecue, smoking is a form of preservation. Smoked meats can last a long time. I had some pulled pork. I finished off my pulled pork from last week in my in some sandwiches today. But I thought about throwing some on top of the soup.
Yep. Well, as long as
Would've
it's
been
stored
great.
properly, it's perfectly okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you
Not
left
forever
it out,
now.
now, if you had left it out at room temperature for 24 hours before putting it in the fridge, I'd question your
Sanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts. No, it stayed out for probably an hour after being pulled, and then it went in the refrigerator. And
I can tell you about the worst case of food poisoning I ever had. Val and I were visiting her dad in New York, and he had some corv, and he served us some corv for dinner, which is a Swedish sausage.
mm-hmm.
It was absolutely delicious. 2 or 3 hours later, I thought I was going to die. Val thought she was going to die.
It's very important to understand, guys.
He had left it out at room temperature for 2 days.
The bacteria that gives you food poisoning and the bacteria that rots the food are two different bacterias. Or, well, they're different bacteria. I shouldn't say two bacterias, but they are different bacterias. Food cannot rot and make you very, very sick. And food can rot and not make you sick. The two are not mutually exclusive. However, you're going to know if you're eating rotten food and you're not going to do it. But, there's a solid chance that if you ate something that was actually rotten, you wouldn't get that sick. There's a chance.
Yeah,
because they're not always the same bacteria.
Well, like I said, we didn't know it, but he had actually cooked that corv 2 days earlier and had left it out.
That's disgusting.
And served it to us for dinner.
That's disgusting. I bet you don't eat at his house anymore ever.
Well, we can't now for an obvious guess, but
oh yeah,
no, but no,
I'm sure you never ate there again.
No.
That would have been my last meal there for sure.
But the surprising thing was it was absolutely delicious.
Yeah, no, people only get to give me food poisoning once. You give me food poisoning once, that's it. Unless it's some exotic food that that maybe you just messed up. But if you did it because you were improperly maintaining temperatures on food that you cooked beforehand, that would make me very angry, and I don't know that you'd want to serve me food again for the way that I would speak to you.
I am terribly paranoid about food poisoning to start out with, and it didn't occur to me to ask because I didn't think someone would do something like that. But I constantly get on Val's nerves, Val's and Randy's both, because I insist on cooked food. It's like, Randy, I don't care if you don't fix your dish until 3 hours later, or want to fix a dish when it's cooked and let it sit in the microwave for 3 hours so that once you're ready to eat, or down in the oven, that food goes away or gets put away as soon as Val and I have eaten and you fixed your plate. You're not going to let it sit out until you're ready to eat, which could very easily be 3 or 4 hours later. But anyway, like I say, overall, I think your potato soup would be very good. No question about it.
I think yours would be pretty good too. I think yours would be pretty good.
Well, especially since you've had it, except I had parsnips in it when I made it.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say that. Like, objectively, your potato soup is very good. I've had it. There are ingredients in your potato soup that I personally don't enjoy, which I'm looking for, which biases me against it.
Of course.
However, it is objectively a very good potato soup.
Yeah. If I was going to say the biggest difference, I am going to give myself a slight edge on being slightly visibly more appealing.
Depends on what you like.
Well, I meant with its color and with the color of the soup itself, along with the veggies adding color to it. I think that might
Are you
a
forgetting
tiny bit.
are you forgetting the dollop of sour cream with the green onions on top for mine? It gave that pop of color.
Well, it's just that gray color
It was a
that's
light
affecting.
brown it was a
Yeah,
light brown
right.
in person. It
Yeah,
was not
that's
gray.
yeah. I think yeah, light brown. I think that's the. If I had any knit at
Gray
all, that's
gray's
the
not a color in my kitchen, guys.
no. That's the only knit that I would throw at it. Really, that's the only serious knit I could possibly launch. And it,
And
if,
that's an awful nitty nitpick right there.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So, okay, guys. Well, that has been our potato soup battle. I don't know what we're making next week. I haven't considered it yet. Jim, have you?
Not really. It's although something that came to mind last night was potato pancakes.
Maybe.
Every culture has some form of potato pancake, and they can be nothing like each other.
You're not wrong, guys. Also, in the comments, I thought up an idea last week when me and Jim were talking privately about for a while every week taking a strange ingredient or a snack or something like that and turning that snack into something edible, like actually very, very good for a breakfast or dinner dish. Things like Cheetos and potato chips and candies and things like that.
Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah, I mean, and those battles would be judged on creativity. So if you made homemade ice cream and then threw Reese's peanut butter cups in them, that would not be creative or interesting, and you would lose. Right? That's boring. So just explaining kind of the thought process, right? However, if you took Reese's peanut butter cups and peeled them and made like a chocolate chicken dish, and then used the peanut butter in like a peanut sauce, that would be interesting.
Well, I'd like to see
So
ideas from our viewers. Just anything they like to see us cook. Not even necessarily that snack battle, but just dishes that
dishes
that we
that you
don't
guys
have.
want us to cook. And also, like I said, if you have an idea for a kind of a mystery item or a challenge item for those kinds of battles, please include those in the comments as well. I'd be fascinated to see what you guys could come up with, because those are the kinds of battles that will really stretch creativity,
And
as opposed to just technical skill, right? Because
and underlining,
go ahead.
I was going to say, underlying all of this is that neither one of us are professional cooks. Sean has worked as a cook before at a chain.
Yeah, just regular.
But neither one of us have had actual cooking training. I certainly haven't.
No.
And part of this is just to show that, hey, anybody can cook. If we can cook good food, you can do it. It's just a matter of deciding, hey, why should I go out and pay a shit ton of money at some restaurant when I can cook this at home and it's not that hard?
And it'll be better because you can control the freshness of your ingredients. I can tell you some horror stories of some things that I've seen behind closed doors when working in a restaurant. Some things that you would not be pleased were landing on your plate. I didn't do it, but...
Well, we've seen Gordon Ramsay shut down restaurants on 24 Hours of Hell and Back, or on Mr. Impossible and Restaurant Impossible, where he shut down restaurants for that kind of practice.
Yep, but I mean, I've seen grilled chicken served off the floor. I've seen all kinds of things in a restaurant. You can't control that. You hope it's not going on, but you can't control it. So. Anyways, guys, that's our time. Yep. If you enjoyed this, please drop a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Hit the bell to get notifications so you don't miss anything. And hopefully we'll see you guys in the next one.
Asta.